Good day, everyone. I am Erich Barque, and I am the first reporter of the Lesson 10, which is the global migration. So first, let's define what is migration. So, migration is the movement of people from one place to another, usually with the intention of settling permanently or temporarily in a new location. So when we say migration, it is one person moving from one place to another. So let's say for example, you're living in Pagadian and move ka sa Tabina. That's what we call migration. Either magstay ba ka dito Dugay or magstay ka dito nga temporarily or permanently. So, there are two forms of migrations. The first migration is internal migration. So, internal migration refers to individual moving from one location to another within same country. So, when we say internal migration, it is one person moving from one place to another but at the same country. Let's say for example, you are taga Quezon Valley and move ka din sa Pagadian. That's what we call internal migration, which is wala ka ning gawa sa Philippines or wala ka ning gawa sa boundary sa Philippines. And the second is international migration. International migration refers to people moving beyond national borders. So, international migration pod is katuning mga tao nga ning adto sa isa ka lugar which is kanang gawas na siya sa Philippines like sa UK, UEA or another sagasa nga country basta gawas na siya sa Philippines, and that's what we call international migration. So, this migration is divided into 5 categories. And first categories is the first is composed of individual who relocate to another country permanently or immigrants. So, the first category is katuning mga tao nga ning-move sa isa ka country but nagplano nga dito na sila magstay, which is tinatawag sila og immigrant. Then the next category is include laborers who are stationed in another country for a set period of time, at least 6 months in a year. So the second category is katuning mga tao nga niadto sa isa ka lugar, either nalabas sila yung trabaho dito and they are just settling at least 6 months a year. The next category is we have the illegal migration comprise. So when we say illegal migration comprise, mo itong mga tao nga ni adto sa isa ka lugar but they are undocumented, which is they are not legally nga mubuyo jud ana nga place. Next is we have a migrant whose families have petitioned them to move to the destination country. So the fourth categories is katuning mga tao nga gipa-move sa isa ka lugar, which is kanang gipabalhin sila or gipugos sila nga mobalhin sa isa ka lugar. Like, let's say for example, katong sa una nga diha sa Santa Lucia, gipabalhin sila dito sa Bulatok. And mo to ang fourth category, which is kang nakubos lang sila, magipetisyonan sila nga mobalhin sa isa ka lugar. And the last category is the fifth group is composed of refugees, also known as asylum seekers. They are those who are unable or unwilling return because of well-founded fear of persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group or political opinion. So, the fifth category is Mao nitong mga tao nga dito sila sa isang lugar but they are not willing to kanang mubalin pa sa ilahang birthplace because of basin na sila kahadlok either nakasala sila anang nga lugar or naba sila yung mga nainasuko sa ilaha. Now, let's proceed the global migration statistics. So, according to demographers, 247 million individuals live outside their native nations. So, 247 million ang nagpuyo sa laing country which is dili nila native nation. And 90% of that migrate for economic reasons. So 90% ning balhin because of silang trabaho and 10% are refugees or asylum seekers. So 10% po sila katong mga unwilling nga mobalik sa ilahang native nation because of fear or napa sila mga kaso in that place. Next is region of origin. So, region of origin. So, kadaghanan sa mga katong 247 million individuals kaning migrate is 18% of global migrants is sa Latin America and 16% sa Eastern and Central Asia and 14% Middle East and North America. So, the top countries is India, Mexico, and China, and the Philippines and Afghanistan is ikaunom sila sa pinakadaghan nga ning migrate. Now, let's proceed to migration destination. So, these are countries nga kasagaraan ipang migratan sa mga tao, which is the West and Middle East with the US leading. So 50% of global migrants move from underdeveloped to developed countries. So 50% sa mga tao nga gikan sila atong mga underdeveloped padulong atong mga developed countries. And migrants represent to 40% to 80% of the labor force in destination countries. So, naa sa 40 to 80% ang mga ning migrant is kanang gipugos sila or napugos sila og trabaho ana nga lugar. And now, let's proceed to population growth. Migrant population growth outpaced that industrialized countries 3% versus 0.6%. According to McKinsey Global Institute, first-generation migrants 13% in Western Europe, 15% in North America, and 48% in GCC countries. So, ang first generation kayo ng mga immigrants is ang immigrants, as what I said ganina, is katong mga tao nga niadto sa isa ka lugar nga para mag-settle nga dito na sila magpuyo. And when we say GCC countries is katuning mga country nga kasagaraan gipang abroadan. Now let's proceed to urbanization. Majority of migrants settled in cities. So kasagaraan sa mga tao nga ni migrant is nagpuyo gyud sila sa city. Syempre, daghang opportunities. And 92% sa US, 95% sa UK, and 99% in Australia. So now, let's proceed to economic contribution based on 2015 data. These are migrant contribution to destination country in dollars and as percentage of national GDP 2015. of GDP. And the Germany is $550 billion and 17% of GDP. And UK, $390 billion and 14% of GDP. Australia, $330 billion and 25% of GDP. And last is Canada is $320 billion and 21% of GDP. So when we say GDP, it is a gross domestic product. It is a total value of all goods and services produced within the country borders, usually a year. Now, let's proceed on debate on migration. So, mo na yung mga kasagaraang ginadiskussan sa mga destination countries. Either the migrant is asset or liabilities for national development. So, mo niya ilang mga ipang-debatean if ang mga migrant ba is makatapang ba siya sa country or liabilities na ba siya. So, because of that sa ilang pag-debate, nin-rise na dayon ang anti-immigrants and nationalist movement advocating for immigration regulation. So, ning-wala dayon ni sila nga dapat limitahan lang ang anang country or dapat na ay rules nga dili na pasudlan ng mga migrant in that certain country. Let's proceed to political context. So, leader like Donald Trump and Theresa May have reversed pro-immigration policies. So, these are mga leaders na ning tubag atong mga anti-immigrants, which is because of that, karong bago lang, most recently, Trump attempted to ban travel into the United States of people from majority Muslim countries. So, Trump try to ban the especially katong mga Muslim countries nga moadto sa United States. Even those with proper documentation, proper documentation, he also continues to speak about his election premise of building a wall between the United States and Mexico. Misag sa katong mga panahon niya nagkuan siya ningdagan siya na siya mga plataforma, yung mga promises is to build a wall between United States and Mexico. Now let's proceed to research findings. So, according to Harvard Business School report, adverse labor market effect on native from immigration are weaker than perceived. So, ang mga native people nga nagpuyuan ng mga kwan is naapektuhan tungkol sa migration according to Harvard Business School. Next is according to OECD report, native-born citizens receive more government support than immigrants. So, according to the report that kanang kasagaraan ginapaboran gyud sa mga government is katulong mismo nagpuyo gyud dito dili katong mga tao katong mga immigrants. So, and according po sa IMF, influx of Syrian and Iraq refugees may modestly boost Europe GDP. In Germany, the refugee influx has minimal impact on social welfare program, wages, and jobs, but contribute positively to the economy. So, I think that's all for my report. And the next topic is discussed by my co-reporter, which is Miss Arlene Haitin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Arlene Simbahona 18 and I'm your second reporter for today. So since humanaman ta sa migration, which is kanang mobalhin sa laing lugar, especially to find a job. Now let's proceed to the benefits and determinants for sending countries. So unsa man ni siya? So the benefits, it's like the pros or the positive effects of sending countries. And the detriments, it's like the cons or the negative effect of sending countries. The migrant workers, it's like abroad or kanang mga domestic helper or OFW ang tawag diri sa tuwa. And then the remittances is kanang kwarta nga ginapadala nila. So in the year 2014, ang remittances is $580 billion, ni increase siya og $689 billion in 2018. So dako kayo ang pagtaas kay magdagan ng tuig nagkataas pud biya ang sweldo. And still ang India ang highest recorded sa remittances, which is 478 $0.6 billion, followed by China, Mexico, and then Philippines, which is $32.2 billion. So these remittances contribute significantly to the development of small and medium term industries, which in turn assets and creating jobs. So mao na kadaghanan diri sa tuway sa mag-abroad kay lagi dakong sweldo dito sa gawas, and then makatabang sa pamilya. So aside from that nga kanang dako siya tabang sa atong pamilya nga pang-adlaw-adlaw nga ginakaon sa pamilya, dako po siya tabang nga kanang makapatukod og balay ang nabilin sa kuan sa diri sa Pinas or sa ilang home country. And then also kanang makatabang siya nga makabayad og tuition sa sa mga anak nga sa mga anak nga nagskwela, or kanang makatabang og kanang pagpundar or something mga business. So the Asian Development Bank or ADB says that in countries like the Philippines, remittances don't really lead to more spending on important things like education or healthcare. This means that while remittances make families less poor for now, but they don't really help the whole country grow stronger and healthier over time. So about sa kanang sa migration or sa mga taong nag-work dito sa laing gawa, so dapat dili ang both pasabot sa ADB or Asian Development Bank is kanang dili lang kay ang kwarta nga kwarta or katong remittances nga ginapadala sa tawo nga nagtrabaho sa gawas, dili lang kay para pang tuition or pang inadlaw-adlaw nga kanang inadlong-adlong panginabuhi sa kanang tawo nga nabilin diri sa Pinas, which is dapat naadjud sila kanang ginahimo nga kanang or ginapatukod nga kanang business kay para unyag uli nila diri sa gikan sa laing gawas nga atong nagtrabaho unyag uli diri sa Pilipinas or sa ilang home countries is na sila panginabuhian ba kumbaga kung unyag uli nila diri is naana sila kanang negosyo nga kanang bisan pag di sila mo trabaho able na sila nga mabuhi ato nga negosyo lang. So mauna siyang ginatawag nga brain drain, kay ang brain it means the smart, educated, and skilled people, and the brain is taken away from their home country. Like for example, kanang mga doctors or engineer, in short, mga college graduates diri sa tuwais, nag-abroad sila kay lagi na ay better opportunity dito sa gawas. So maunang brain drain ang ginatawag is kay ang mga skilled people diri sa tuwa imbis na mao'y mutabang diri para mugo ang ato ang country, na anon sila dito sa laing gawas. Like for example, countries in Sub-Saharan Africa and Asia have lost 1/3 of their college graduates according to the McKinsey Global Institute. 60% of individuals who relocated to OECD countries were college graduates, compared to only 9% of the country's total population. More than half of Filipinos, which is 52%, who live for employment. And the industrialization world have college degrees compared to only 23% of the total Filipino population. So mao nang negative impact on the migrants' home nation. Kaya in 2006, around 15% of locally trained doctors from 21 sub-Saharan African nation went to the United States or Canada, wherein kini nga country ang rich ug dakog sweldo ang mga doktor. Losses were notably high in Liberia, 43% of doctors left, Ghana 30%, and Uganda 20%. So maoning daghang mag-abroad or migrant workers cause some of the main reason are higher salaries, better working condition, more career opportunities, political or economic problems like naay mga corruption or dubot na or wala kaayoy kanang kasudlan nga trabaho diri sa atoa. And last is education and skill use. So na-realize nila nga mas ma-develop ilang skills dito sa gawas. In short, they live because they want a better life. The World Health Organization or WHO uses the term critical shortages for countries that don't have health workers like doctors, nurses, and midwives. A country is said to have a critical shortage if it has less than 22.8 health workers for every 10,000 people, and less than 80% of childbirths are held by skilled health workers. So in 2010 to 2011, this declined to 54. The majority of these countries were in Africa, 46 or 13% in 2011. But the region with the highest percentage of critical shortages were in the Americas, 35 or 74 in 2011. So the reason behind the critical shortage of health workers is because many doctors or nurses and midwives leave their home countries to work abroad, especially in richer countries like the United States. Nag-abroad sila because of higher pay, better work condition, more career opportunities, better life for their families. In short, health workers more move because they are looking for better jobs and a better life, but when they leave their home country suffer from not having enough skilled people left to take care of everyone. Governments know that losing workers because they go abroad hurts their country in the long run. However, they still support sending workers overseas because the money sent home or the remittances is very important for their economy because it makes up a big part of their country's income called GDP. In case you didn't know, about GDP or the gross domestic product is a monetary measure of the total market value of all final goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific period. So the governments are thus actively involved in the recruitment and deployment of workers, with some establishing specialized departments such as Bangladesh Bureau of Manpower's Employment and Training, NDS Office of the Protection of Immigrants under the Labor Ministry, and the Philippine Overseas Employment Agency. Those offices support workers because daghang tao nga wala trabaho diri sa tua, and they also want to earn as much remittances money as possible to help the economy and protect workers' rights, and especially make sure the country gets the most benefit from sending workers abroad. And that's all for my report for today, and goodbye.
Now, we're going to tackle about the problem of human trafficking. But first, let's talk about human trafficking. Human trafficking is a significant problem worldwide. According to the International Labor Organization or ILO, to 2016, an estimated 40.3 million people were victims of modern slavery. So what is human trafficking? Human trafficking is a complicated issue. It is a form of modern day slavery where individuals are exploited and forced into a labor, sex work, or other form of servitude against their will. For example, forced labor. Forced labor means being made to work against your will, often through threats, violence, or exploitation. It's a form of modern day slavery that can cause physical and emotional harm. Sex trafficking. Sex trafficking is a form of human trafficking that involves exploitation of individuals, often through force, coerce, or deceive means for commercial sex purposes. Child exploitation. Child exploitation refers to the abuse or mistreatment of children, often for the benefit of an adult or organization. So those are some examples of human trafficking.
Good morning, good afternoon, Sir Archie, and to all our viewers. By the way, I'm Dexter Simanti, and I'll be the continuation for the topic Migration of Group A. So, integration and social integration. This means that it's combining two or more groups or communities as ones. And now, for the economic integration, it simply means reducing barriers, tariffs, and other countries to make things easy and accessible. So, when you say integration, when it comes to migrants, the way migrants engage with their new home countries is final point to consider. They may contribute significantly to the GDP of the host country, but they do not have easy access to the housing, healthcare, and education. So why they do not have access to the housing, healthcare, and education? So there are many reasons why. Some of the reasons are the discrimination, economic constraints, limited awareness, and we also have the policy restriction, language barriers, and legal status. But right now, we will only be tackling these three, the most important of them, which are the legal status, language barriers, and policy restrictions. When we say legal status, it is because documented migrants may not have the necessary paperwork, make it difficult to access these services, and that is one of the reasons that why some migrants do not have easy access to housing, healthcare, and education, and such as. Now the second one is the language barriers. May not speak the local language, creating obstacles in navigating systems and communicating needs. So it is very important that every migrant and immigrant should have known the basic language that this country use, or the international language, which is the English. And for the third one is the policy restrictions. Laws and regulations may restrict against migrants eligibility for certain services or create bureaucratic hurdles. Now, those are the reasons why they do not have easy access. Now, let us continue. Migrants from China, India, Western Europe, and often have more success, while those from Middle East, North Africa, and Sub-Saharan Africa face greater challenges in securing jobs. So why so? The book says that those migrants from China, India, and Western Europe often have more success. So why do they have more success? Well, as to my research, it is very crucial to engage in such things, because one of the first reason for these things that those from China, India, and Western Europe have more success is because they have the skills and qualifications. So what does this mean? Migrants from China, India, and Western Europe often possess skills in high demand fields like the technology, the engineering, and also for the academia. And those things are very essential in every countries. If ever these countries needed someone like good in the computer or on the infrastructure, as well as the education. Many migrants from these regions have access to quality education, enhancing their employability, and that's also the reason the education is a must when migrating to another country. In contrast, migrants from the Middle East, North Africa, and Sub-Saharan Africa might face RD, limited recognition of qualifications. Since we all have known that this country, Sub-Saharan African, is very remote place not all technologies can maabot dito ba. Pwede mo na magbisaya ani na over na ko ay that they can have access to new technology. So, and the second one is the language barriers. Third one is the cultural differences. It's very different to the culture of the Western Europe and the Sub-Saharan African people. Not similar, and they are very lahi ra jud siya difference. Oo. The last one is limited access to education and job training. And that's it. That's why these countries are very having difficulty to access migration. So as we continue, the US and the Singapore has this what they call e-collar, which are the blue collar and the white collar. So what is the functions of this white collar? For the migrating people, for them to migrate in these countries, there are two classifications. We have the blue collar and the white collar. So what is the use of this collar? First, this blue collar. This blue collar refers to working class jobs involving manual labor. So these manual labor are those people that works in construction, transportation, manufacturing, and service industry, and any other more works that requires manual labor. Now, for this white collar, it refers to professional or managerial jobs typically involving office work. So this one simply means that if you're a professional, then you are in the working in a place that works that you are not directly under the sun. So this one is work that inside the office, like paperwork. For examples, the education, finance, business management, and any other form of works that are professional and only in that works inside. Now, as we continue, immigrants and their children are absorbed into democratic states by being granted citizenship and the rights that come with it, of course. However, it may merely be formality if their citizens do not support them, linguistic challenges, or old country habits. And more recently, conflicting religions may cause rifts between migrants and people of receiving countries, especially in the West. So this is also the problem. Even though these persons are granted citizenship, for example, let's say for example, these Filipino people migrating to another country, and let's say for instance this country is America. Even though these Filipinos granted citizenship by the American, does not mean it also granted their Filipino habits, their language. That is also the problem that can cause conflict. So the latter accuse migrants of bringing their home cultures with them and exacerbating linguistic and racial disparities. Moreover, the lack of integration provides xenophobic and anti-immigrant groups with greater ammunition to argue that these new citizens are often not nationals in the same of sharing the dominant culture. Culture. So we cannot deny that there are people that anti-immigrant. They don't want foreigner or other people to share their country and to benefit from it. So this also could create more conflict to another people, since they can use these disparities to push that they have the rights, and the government should listen to them, that these migrant people should not be allowed from their country, from their own country, since it can cause some problems to their own culture of these migrating people, that they bring their own culture also. So from these problems, these causes of the migrant people, the government took an action. So the governments and private businesses have made policy changes to address integration problems, such as multiple languages in state documents in the cause of the United States is Spanish and English. In Hamburg, Germany, migrant integration has been aided by training programs combined with counseling, whereas retail merchants to Barcelona have brought in migrant shopkeepers to break down language difficulties while exposing locals to Chinese culture. Whether or not this attempt will be successful remains to be seen. So that is one of the actions that the government took, and these actions might or may not help everyone, but this action is a stepping stone that every migrating people can unite together. And even though there are language barriers, there are culture shocks, some things, kind of things like that, it can be learned, or it can be explained to other person, to other people, that we can coexist. Now for the conclusion of the topic, migration. Global migration entails the globalization of people. Unlike the broader globalization process, it is an event. Some migrants experience their movement as liberating process. And what is liberating process? This liberating process is a process of transformative experience because some people have this kind of restraints from their culture or from their own country. So it is more like from someone is restraining you to another place that you will have your own freedom. It could be in your emotional or the physical or even your psychological. Now, a highly educated professional may find moving to another country financially rewarding. On the other hand, a sex trafficking victim may perceive relocation as disorienting and disempowering. Now, so it says clearly here that some educated professional may find moving to another country, since we have a lot of Filipinos that are educated that they choose to move to another country since that country has a far more better chances of a better income, better opportunities that they can able to provide for their families. Moreover, like globalization, migration produces different and often contradictory responses. On the one hand, many richer states know that migrant labor will be beneficial for their economies. Migrant labor will be beneficial for their economies. With their aging populations, Japan and Germany will need workers from demographically young countries like the Philippines. So why do states here that the Philippines is a young country? Since the Philippines is still a developing countries and we have a lot of labor workers. And Japan, Thailand, the Germany, they are hiring Filipino people because they know that Philippine people are very hard workers. And now, their economies. The United States move to more skilled careers. Their economies will require migrants to work jobs that their local workers are beginning to reject. Yeah. Nonetheless, despite these benefits, developed countries continue to excessively limit and restrict migrant labor. They do so for numerous factors already mentioned. Some want to perceive what they perceive as local culture by shielding it from newcomers. Other states use migrants as scapegoats, blaming them for economic woes that are, in reality, caused by government policies and not by foreigners. Yes, so this conclusion says that some countries continue to excessively limit and restrict migrant labor. So those why do they limit migrant labor? Because some they say that because as mentioned before that migrating people bring some other culture, and also it could create a culture shock for them, as well as it's like have them thinking that these migrating people are more favored by this some kind of organization or of the government, since they have given same opportunities as well that the locals there receive, something like that. So now, and now this is Dexter Simante, and that is for my report. Bye bye. Ayo tang tanan.